Well, things are coming to a grinding halt. Oh my god, this car. Why did I buy this thing? Why? Just this is a whole thing. This is setting me back weeks and weeks probably. How did this happen again? Well guys, in the last video we had a little bit of a setback with my, it's not even cheap anymore, with my 2003 Cobra. Took it to the dyno and it was smoking a little bit on the dyno. The worst smoke is on engine deceleration, which I am hoping is intake valve seals. I say hoping because you know, it would be nice if the valve seals were good, you know, on the new rebuilt heads that I put in this thing. But if it's not the valve seals, I don't know, it could be something worse, maybe guides or something else. But compression test is good. Doesn't seem to smoke, you know, just at idle or, you know, normal cruising around town. So I think that our rings and everything on the lower end and everything is healthy. So let's see, but yeah, let's get right to work in this video. In the last video, I explained that doing any sort of work under the valve covers on these cars is a pain in the ass because of how wide these motors are, especially on the driver's side. So I elected to remove the motor to do all 32 valve seals. Gonna do some suspension upgrades while we're at it, and as well as a cooling system upgrade. But the first order of business is to get the valve cover off. I think I'm gonna start right here on the passenger side, just because it's already unbolted. And take a look at the valve seals. There's a special tool needed for the 4-valve or dual overhead cam motors. This one is for a 2-valve, but I believe I ordered it on Amazon. It was like $27 or something like that. I thought it might work, but I think it might work for the exhaust valves or one of the two sets of valves. My special tool will be here tomorrow, but I just want to see if I can get, you know, one valve spring off, take a look at the seal, and see how it compares to the 32 Felpro valve seals that I've got here. These are brand new. These came in my gasket kit from way back when I started this rebuild. Premium valve stem seals. We'll see, but yeah, let's get right to work. Now, the first thing we need to do is pop the followers off. So that we can have direct access to the valve springs. And then when we go to remove the valve spring, we need to make sure that the valve stays up because we're removing the retainers that are holding it up, or the keepers. We want to make sure it doesn't fall down into the cylinder. And there's two ways to do that. One way is to use a leak down tester adapter and fill the cylinder with compressed air. The other way is to bring that cylinder up to top dead center so that if the valve does go down, it just kind of, you know, rests against the piston, and then you can pull it back up and pull the retainers or put the keepers back in. I'm gonna do the latter. I think I'm gonna rotate the crank until the piston or the cylinder that I'm working on is at top dead center, and then we can be sure that if we get a valve off, or a valve out of the keepers out of the valve, that it's not gonna fall into the cylinder. So first things first though, I need to make sure that whatever set I'm working on here is on the base lobe of the cam. And looks like these two exhaust valves are on, what is this? Cylinder 2. We got 1357, I think is on the Ford, so this would be 2468, or that's LS. I don't know, this cylinder right here. So let's pop these followers off and get to work. All right, so there's the spring. I guess this thing just kind of goes around the cam like that. See, before I push this down though, we want to make sure that we're at top dead center. So I'm going to stick something in the cylinder there, and when it stops moving up, we'll know. So here's an old piece of aluminum welding wire. bottom out there on the piston. Now we'll just turn the crank until it goes all the way up. Stops moving up. Right about there. I think that's gonna be the top. So I should be able to grab a small magnet and pop this valve spring off. We'll see. Also, probably worth mentioning that before you do any of this, you should stuff a rag or rags in all of your oil galleries, because when these retainers or keepers drop out, and you will drop them, you really don't want them going down into the oil pan, because then you're in for a really bad time. So there's one. All right, well, after much struggle, I got both, as I learned how to use that tool, I got both keepers off, so now we can pull off the spring. And now we got eyes on the valve seal. You can see our valve moves up and down freely. And you can also see that right there is on the piston. So that's as far as it can go. So that's the purpose of moving this thing to top dead center. That one looks okay. It seems like it's dry inside where the guide is. All right, a little bit of a learning curve there as I got to learn how to use that tool and, you know, kind of the tips and tricks. But I got one of the exhaust valve seals out on cylinder number 1. I wanted to show you something over here on the bench that I think, I want to, you know, count my chickens before they hatch, but I think it's a good sign, and what I was kind of hoping to see. So I usually like to do this with cardboard. You guys have seen me do this before, even though this is kind of a job where we're going to do it one at a time, so we're not going to have all this stuff out at once. Still not a bad idea. At the very least, because we'll have the piston down, we're going to pop probably all 4 followers off for each cylinder as we do this. So this will just help us stay organized. But we've got the follower there, the 2 keepers, and the retainer and the spring here for one side of cylinder 1 on the exhaust. And then I've got my brand new Velcro valve seal right there and the valve seal that came out. And at first glance, they look pretty similar other than the obvious, you know, color differences. But you guys might even be able to tell on camera. We'll see. Anyways, the hole where the valve stem goes through on this one seems a little bit bigger. I don't know if that's from wear or a design flaw or what, but it just visually seems bigger. So I did a very, very official test here. I grabbed a screwdriver that the valve stem, the new one, will fit on. Put it on there, stays. Does not move. It's a tight fit around the screwdriver. Gently pop that off so we don't damage it. The old one, it's like throwing a hot dog down a hallway. She is loose as a sleeve of wizard on there. So that's one side. On the other side, I grabbed an 8mm socket just because that's what I found fit on the new valve seal. So this is basically imitating the valve guide where the valve seal seals on the valve guide. And it is nice and tight on the bottom of this 8mm socket. On this one, nothing. Hot dog down a hallway. Again. So, maybe they're crappy valve seals. Maybe they're the wrong valve seals. Maybe this is nothing and that's just how a correct fitting valve seal looks after 50 miles of break-in. I don't know. Point is, I guess I'm glad that I'm seeing a difference between the two, because if I took them out and they were exactly the same, then that would potentially indicate that this is not our issue. I'm not saying we're out of the woods yet, but it's a good sign. So as of right now, I think I'm going to put a pause, at least on this part of this job. I'm going to wait till tomorrow, have the valve seal to do the the intake side, so I can, you know, do one complete cylinder, call that done, and then hopefully this process speeds up a little bit. I'm assuming this is one of those jobs where as I kind of get into a rhythm, it's going to go faster. It just took me 15 minutes to remove one valve spring And I'm hoping it starts going a little bit faster than that, because I've got 32 of these to do. But when you see me tomorrow, hopefully the new tool is here and I'm gonna be ripping through these valve seal replacements. So I got everything organized. I think I have all the tools I need. In the meantime, let's break open the box on some new parts. Well, as I mentioned in the last video, it's another while you're in there. While we got these shocks hanging out here, I figured we'd do something about the ride height that was a little bit uneven ever since I cut the factory springs, which you can do. There's nothing wrong with cutting the factory Cobra springs because they are linear. The ride comfort was great, no problems there, but the rear has these H&R lowering springs and they weren't quite low enough, and I don't think you can cut those ones. So thankfully, the guys at Maxpeeding Rods reached out to me and said, hey, we'd love you to try a set of our coilovers. So these are them. They're designed for the 99 to 2004, or I guess 94 to 2004 SN95 Mustang with the solid rear axle, which this Cobra has because someone swapped in a solid rear axle. For the rest of you 99 to 04 Cobra guys, these aren't gonna work, but for me, sure. So for the fronts, these things look awesome. You know, all billet aluminum adjustments and lock rings. Spring looks nice, powder coated like a metallic silver. And you got a CNC aluminum top adjustment plate there. 24-way adjustable dampening. Just looks like a pretty nice piece here, guys. Pretty impressed, honestly, so far. The rear is an interesting design. It's technically not a coilover per se, but it allows adjustment via, I believe these are gonna go in the car like that and effectively give you an adjustable ride, you know, adjust to your liking, the ride height in the rear. And then the, rear shocks, you can adjust accordingly. Same thing, 24-way adjustable dampening. They give you the lock ring tools to adjust your ride height. And yeah, just an overall really nice kit. These guys have a ton of stuff on their website. They make, as their name implies, rods, eating really nice H-beam rods, coilovers for a ton of applications, just tons and tons of high quality aftermarket stuff. So be sure to check them out. Huge shout out to Maxpeeding Rods for sending me these. So while I'm waiting for that valve spring tool, I figured we could hopefully get this knocked out, or at least part of it knocked out. Factory Cobra Bilsteins are very nice, but I mean, they've got 100,000 miles on them. They've seen some wear and could probably use an upgrade as far as, you know, adjustable ride height and adjustable dampening. So that being said, I'm probably gonna need to maybe scoot this thing forward just a hair, lower this down so I can get those shocks unbolted and start bolting some stuff up. Let's go. Years old, still good. Bilstein. Good evening. Next night here. Last night we kind of switched gears from valve seals over to suspension and got the full Maxpeeding rods coilover setup installed in the car. So front coilovers are in. It's an easy bolt in just because we were already there, you know, all the lower suspension was already out of the way. Got our adjustable dampening right here. So we'll mess with that later, and we'll obviously get a full alignment once we get there, if we get there. Same thing in the rear. Got the adjustable struts and then the adjustable springs as well. They're just in there for now. Had to take apart the trunk again. But yeah, overall, easy install, nothing crazy. The valve seal side, I'm making some progress, slowly but surely. So here is the tool that I've been waiting for. By the way, I set up kind of a workbench here using a QA1 box, which you'll see in an upcoming 69 Camaro video, stacked on 2 tires. So that's my workbench. Remember guys, if the ladies don't find you attractive, they should at least find you handy. Here's the Stallion 4-valve install or valve compressor tool that I was waiting for. This was $200. And it seems to be working okay. Comes with, a couple different attachments here that you can basically clip into here. This is designed to loop around the camshaft and then compress the spring so that you can remove the keepers and pull the spring out. This one's for a 4-liter Ford. And this one they wanted you to use on the exhaust, but honestly I found that it's terrible. And I just use the intake one for both intake and exhaust. So you kind of hook it around the cam. I guess I'll show you down here where I have the followers already removed. But basically we are gonna hook this thing around the cam, and I won't be able to do it. Maybe I can do it with one hand. Around the cam, and then on top of the valve spring, and then using this handle here, as opposed to the other tool, which had you're supposed to use a 3/8 ratchet, you can then pull down. The light is not great. Let me get the light better. There we go. You can then pull down, and you can see that the keepers there loosen up. And then you're going to pull those out with a magnet, then the valve spring comes out as a whole. The tricky part is reinstalling them because the spring kind of wants to go sideways, which then pushes the valve down, which doesn't allow you to grab into the features in the side of the valve where the keeper's attached to. It's a whole thing. Basically, I got a couple hours into this thing and I have 8 done. So cylinders, let's see, what is that? 1 and 2 right here, 1, 2. 8 valve seals done. You can see I'm kind of organized over here. I got the 8 old ones all out here. Like I said, none of them look terrible. They just appear to have, not as tight of tolerances as these Felpro ones. Who knows? As expected, I am getting a little bit faster. I mean, not going as fast as I'd like, and I'm still struggling a little bit. And I can't really film a lot of this, guys. It's hard enough for me to see with my eyeballs kind of moving my head around, let alone film it, but I'll try and bring you through one of them here. So this is going to be exhaust valve, one of the exhaust valves on cylinder 3. The first thing I'm going to do is I stuck a little aluminum TIG filling rod, and I'm going to bring that piston to top dead center. So we'll be able to see coming up now, coming up, still coming up, and right about there it stops. So we know that that's going to be close enough to top dead center so that we don't lose the valve when we, if it were to fall down. So then I can come in here with the tool, hook it around the cam. Where's my magnet? Get my magnet ready. Magnet and screwdriver just in case they're stubborn. Pull down on the tool. Grab one. Grab the next one. Maybe you guys can see this on camera, but the tool now wants to go sideways. So you're kind of always fighting it. This is definitely not ideal. I don't know how anyone would do this in the car. It's just terrible enough outside the car. So I don't know how anyone would do this in the car. I digress. Pull out the spring and retainer, which reveals the valve seal. I'm going to take a set of needle nose pliers. Well, actually, you can just kind of see the valve moving up and down right there. That's hitting on the piston, so we know that that's as far as the valve will go. That's the point of that, so we don't lose the valve in there. So I'm going to take some needle nose, kind of grab the base here, wiggle, wiggle. Be careful not to scratch the valve if you can. So if you feel yourself losing grip, just re-grip, okay? So pull her out. There's the old valve seal. Put it on my piece of cardboard. Then I'm going to come through with a rag and just make sure that the valve guide itself is nice and clean. No major debris on there. Same thing with the valve itself, just give it a quick wipe. Valve doesn't feel super loose in the guide or anything, just a quick inspection. You can feel it make a positive seat on the valve seat, so that feels good. Okay, so make sure you grab your new one. New valve seal. I'm going to lubricate the seal itself with a little bit of clean motor oil, top and bottom. And Felpro also includes this valve seal tool, which I think is basically the 3 ribs where the keepers grab on. It's supposed to prevent the seal from tearing or damaging the seal as it goes over that. So some valve seals don't even include these. So I don't know how necessary it is, but I've been doing it. Put that over the valve, push it all the way down, and then we can drop the valve seal, grab another one, and forget about that one later, and then think that our kit is missing one. So put on a new valve seal that you don't drop, push it over the tip of the valve, expanding around, nice tight seal, and then you want to press it down onto the guide. I've actually just been using the spring itself to make sure I get a nice even pressure around, and there's a nice positive pop onto the valve guide itself. So now we can remove the valve seal install tool, which is just a little plastic sleeve. It looks like a straw. Make sure the valve is all the way up, and here comes the fun part. Put my spring back, make sure the valve is all the way up as far as it will go. Carefully put my spring back on there. Get my 2 retainers, or keepers rather, ready with some grease and my non-magnetic screwdriver. I've been using a tie-down strap as a second person to hold the spring compressor down so that I can use both hands and give me the best chance of being able to do this. I'll have to show you guys. Okay, you guys are caught up in my tool. Move out of the way, will you? Never mind, my tie-down strap is pulling it sideways. We'll adjust that later, but... Alright, got grease on one keeper. Got that one on there. Spin it around so it's out of the way for the next one, hopefully. Now with one hand, get caught in your magnet. That's always fun. See if we can get the other one in here. Nope. Abort. Let's see, this is what I'm talking about, guys. This is the half the battle, is just fighting with these retainers. They need to be sticky enough that they'll stick to your screwdriver, but then they need to not stick when they're in the correct spot. So, and there's just no access here. Ooh. Come on. Come on. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There you go. One down out of 32. Try to wipe off some of this extra grease. It's not going to do any harm, but there you go. One new valve seal. 7 minutes is what my camera says. So that's it. I mean, sometimes those keepers pop right in and I'm done in less than 5 minutes. Other times they fight me, and it's taken me a half hour more to do one seal. This is what has worked in the past. I couldn't really do it without bumping you guys, but I've been hooking the tool on this tie-down strap, and that way I can have 2 hands to try and get those keepers on there. But sometimes it works with one hand too. Here's my pile of grease. I put the keeper on a screwdriver and just kind of feed it in there gently until they both seat and are good to go. So yeah, that is 9 out of 32. I'm probably gonna A, not film a lot of this, or B, time-lapse some of it because it's hard to see, it's tedious, and you guys don't need to see it 31 more times. So I'm gonna get right back to work. I don't know if I'm gonna finish tonight or not, because it takes forever, and if you get frustrated, you should walk away, which sometimes I struggle to do, but I'm gonna get back to work here, and hopefully next time I see you guys, we have 32 brand new valve seals, and we can get to work getting this thing back in where it belongs. Well, things are coming to a grinding halt. This is cylinder number 3. This intake valve in particular is the one that had the seized up lash adjuster back when we first started this thing. That's not good. And look what I just noticed. There's that Android zoom for your ass. Multiple cracks on that thing. Not only that, this valve just feels terrible, like seized in there almost. So in all likelihood, when that rocker popped off and was just kind of wedged in there against the cam, which you can see that wear is still there, even though you can't feel anything with your finger, it bent the valve and cracked the guide, and we never would have seen that if we didn't get this far. Oh my God, this car. Why did I buy this thing? Why? I should have just left it there in the driveway in New Jersey. I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. But it is just fighting me, guys. That head needs to come off and probably get rebuilt again. All because of a lash adjuster. And, you know, who knows if these valve seals are even bad. Maybe it was just that intake valve, because the guide was cracked, was just profusely leaking. But this is a huge setback, you guys. Absolutely huge. And now the supercharger needs to come off. At the very least, one head needs to come off. Timing cover, lower crank pulley. This is a whole thing. This is setting me back weeks and weeks probably. All right, well, I need to probably clean up a little bit. Maybe hop on the internet tomorrow and see if I want to get a new head or maybe send this out to get rebuilt. I don't know yet, guys, but I'll get back with you. Damn it. Well, as usual, things have escalated. I think the last time I talked to you guys was 3-4 days ago when I discovered that what was supposed to be an already huge job of doing 32 valve seals on this motor out of the car, I found a cracked valve guide, which requires the head to be removed And from there, the past 3 days, I've kind of been formulating a plan and kind of picking away at this thing as my mental state will allow with the frustration I've had with this car. But let me bring you up to speed where we're at. Obviously, supercharger is off. The parts pile has grown exponentially. Passenger side or right side cylinder head is off. Everything in here looks fantastic. You know, just still got the cross hatching from when this thing was machined. The pistons still look brand new. The deck surface still looks brand new, which I think is to be expected because this thing has like 60 miles on it at this point. So nothing crazy to see there. Everything looks really good. Also, just because we did a compression test before we took the motor out of the car, it was like 205 to 210 PSI every cylinder. Just for fun, I also did a leak down test on both banks before I took that head gasket off just to see. And these were the results. So I guess I ripped a little bit right there, but between 5 and 8% on the entire motor, with the exception of the valve that had the cracked guide, which was leaking through the intake, which is the valve that was messed up, which makes sense. And even then it was only 15%. So basically, all tests are saying that this motor is extremely healthy, with the exception of this guide, which I've got over on the bench here. So let me show you. So off camera, I have finished doing the rest of the valve seals here. So I've done 15.5 valve seals, all of them except for this one, because of that crack. Or there's actually multiple cracks in this thing. I don't know how well it's going to come out on camera. But yeah, that valve is, I think that valve is bent and that valve guide is cracked. If we flip the head up here, once again, you know, mating surface looks absolutely perfect. But this is what's interesting. You guys obviously won't be able to tell, but this valve is basically gets wedged. That it is extremely hard. It's basically seized right there in that position. You have to kind of force it back in, which tells us that that valve is definitely bent. I can't believe this thing ran as well as it did. And as much as this sucks, and you know, I'm disappointed at where we're at. I think it could have been worse. Obviously, we probably would have avoided all of this if we didn't have that follower pop off when I did that first startup, because that's definitely what did this damage. But with that valve being bent and kind of seizing up in the guide like that, and the guide being cracked, it's possible that after time, that valve could have got loose in the guide, or something could have dropped into the cylinder head and, you know, took out the entire motor. LS7 guys, myself included, you'll know what I'm talking about. So even though this is a major setback, I'm glad that we caught it when we did. But here's the plan. I've already got a head gasket, head bolts, and any of the other associated seals that we'll need to get this thing back together. Today's Sunday. On Monday morning, so tomorrow morning, bright and early, I'm dropping this off at the local machine shop. Same machine shop that actually built the bottom end of this thing. And they are going to replace the guide and the valve in this head, and possibly the seat, the valve seat as well. So hopefully within the next week, we will be able to get this motor back together and maybe even back in the car. In the meantime, in the downtime, I'm gonna replace the 16 valve seals on the other side, and hopefully we can get this thing 100% and get it back in the car. But yeah, that's a quick update for you guys right now. Like I said, I'm gonna drop the head off at the machine shop, and then it's just gonna be kind of a waiting game. But there'll be plenty. I'm actually working on a project on the truck, halfway through a project in the Camaro, and kind of on the C8 Z06 as well. There'll be plenty of content in the meantime that you guys might even see before this video. But let's get this head to the machine shop. Hopefully get to work getting this Cobra back together once again. That ain't a bad sight. At least I got that to look at while all of this is going on. Well, guys, it has been, I think it's been a week and a half since I discovered that the Cobra on the passenger side head had a cracked valve guide. And basically what I did was called up the local machine shop. It's actually the same machine shop that built the bottom end of this motor, and dropped the head off with them and told them to take care of it. I said, it's got a bent valve, I think, cracked guide, and so, you know, just do what you got to do to get it back 100%. I dropped off the retainers and the keepers and the new valve seal. 4 days later, he called me and said, yep, it's all done, come get it. That was Friday, today's Monday. I just got a chance to go pick it up this morning. Here's what we got. So basically the same head that I dropped off. You can see the exhaust cam is still in there. One of these is not like the other. You can tell they had the special tool that doesn't require them to use grease and, you know, a magnetic screwdriver to get the keepers back in, because this is the only one that doesn't have grease on it. So this is our new valve right here. It's going to have a new guide in there. And once again, one is not like the other. Boom, brand new intake valve. And if we look at the receipt here, remove and replace valve guide, $12 in labor. Intake valve, $15.10. Valve guide, $6.30. And cut a new valve seat, $25, for a grand total of $58.40. We are back on the road. So that's not too bad. Gotta love a local machine shop that knows these motors, knows these heads, and was able to knock it out for me in like 4 days for an extremely reasonable price. Look at this, guys. I don't know if you'll be able to tell on video, but that valve stem is bent. She's got a little wobble to her. And you can see the guide was cracked in 2 spots, and I guess when they pulled it out, it completely separated. And probably a little bit of damage on the bottom too, but definitely glad we caught this, you know, while we were doing the valve seals. Also, painstakingly replaced the 16 remaining valve guides on the driver's side or left side of the engine. I don't know how anyone could have done this in the car. This was a pain in the ass. Woo! Done! What do we got? 4 minutes, 29 seconds. Shoo! 32 valve seals. Done. Good riddance. This was a pain in the butt outside of the car. I can't imagine having to do it leaning over the fender with limited access and a brake booster and a whole bunch of lines right here. No thanks. So glad we did it outside the car. So there's that, but then I also got a stack of parts over here, so let's go through those. So obviously the head had to come off. We're gonna need some new gaskets. Head gaskets, obviously not reusable, so I got a brand new Felpro head gasket, same ones that we used before, multi-layer steel, good to go there. Just before any of you get excited, we're doing cams to this thing, but they're the stock ones. So here's the factory cam, factory intake cam that I took out before I dropped the head off the machine shop. And if you guys remember back in the first video where we started this thing and that rocker or follower popped off and got wedged in there, it kind of ground up this cam lobe a little bit. Nothing that I can feel with my fingernail, nothing that even feels bad, but just visually not great. So I decided, since the head was going to be out for a week anyways and the cam had to come out anyways, there would literally be no extra labor to replace this intake cam, just to be sure that this lobe isn't going to cause any issues in the future. So that's garage art now. So I made a post on the good old forums, SVT Performance, and said, hey, does anyone have their stock cams laying around? Specifically, the passenger side intake cam is really the only one that I need. And I figured a bunch of people would, because they're pretty much worthless. They're the same cams as Aviators, Mach 1s, Cobras, they're all the same. And because they made so many of them and guys are always looking to upgrade to aftermarket, they're really not worth anything. A lot of guys just throw them away. I had a bunch of friends that I reached out to. They were like, yeah, I threw mine away. So long story short, I was able to get a guy named Vinny, shout out Vinny, thank you for sending me these, to send me both intake cams, both driver and passenger, just for the cost of shipping. He said I think he said he was going to throw them out, or they were kicking around in storage or whatever, so I kicked him a few bucks for shipping. And he shipped me a low mileage cam that looks even better than that one, you know, ever did out of his car. And yeah, this is a passenger side intake cam. You guys should even be able to see from there. The lobes all look absolutely perfect. So while you're in there, I got to get that on a shirt or something, do some apparel. I figured we'd replace the intake cam for, I think it was 20 bucks for Vinny to ship these to me. So again, thank you, Vinny, for sending me these cams. I'll save the other one, maybe pay it forward to the next guy that's in this situation sometime in the future. So yeah, new intake cam. These Fel-Pro head bolts are torque to yield, so those are not reusable. So I had to get a new set of head bolts for that side. So those are the major things. Cam bolts. These are what secure the cam gears to the cams. Also torque to yield. There's a lot of torque to yield stuff on this motor. Also not reusable. Got those new from Ford online. I think they were like $2 each. I got 4 of them actually, just in case, but there's that. This is part of my Rock Auto order. Got a lot of this stuff on Rock Auto. Timing cover seal. I thought I nicked that one on the way out, and it was like $2. So, you know, it would suck to put this all back together and have a timing cover leak, so got a new one of those. I noticed, I don't know how this happened, but the transmission output shaft seal has a hole in it. Again, not really sure how that happened, but a new one is $3. So I'm going to pop one of those in while the transmission's right here. New PCV valve. I think I actually talked about this in a previous video. Throw that in. Found some exhaust studs and stainless hardware for $11. So at least while this header is out, we can put some stainless studs and new hardware on the headers there. The exhaust gasket should be reusable. I know a lot of guys do that, so I'm going to do that. And the only other odd man out here is these are a couple of ball joints. I noticed while this thing was on the ground that this ball joint, the boot is torn and it's completely smoked. The other side is not far behind, so thanks to the good folks at Rock Auto, I got a new set of ball joints for I think like $6 each. So I'll toss in 2 new ball joints while I'm here and probably toss a coat of paint on this spindle and A-arm. Probably what I should have done the first time I had this motor out anyways. So, bunch of new parts. We'll obviously go over all of this in the final cost breakdown for this car, which should be pretty interesting, but about $58, $60 for the head. I want to say the head gasket and bolts and all that other associated stuff was around $100. So far we're about $150 into this repair, which is not bad. Could have been a lot worse. Obviously a ton of labor. Not really happy about all that, but as far as actual cash out of my pocket, could be worse. But yeah, the only thing left to do now is start putting it back together. So I don't know where I'm going to start. I'm actually kind of in the middle of a Camaro video right now, which may or may not be out before this one. I'm not sure. But we are going to just start tackling some of this stuff. So let's get to work. Cruising right along, getting this thing back together, making some good progress. It's actually a couple days later. I've been completely buried in my 69 Camaro. I think that video will be out after this one, but this thing is getting some major suspension upgrades, and it's been taking a lot of time. But back on the Cobra tonight. Got the head completely reassembled with my new cam, new intake cam rather. All the cam cap bolts torqued down. I double checked the exhaust ones as well. My new-ish timing set with 50 miles on it is back on. Timing marks are lined up. They were lined up. Where'd they go? There they are. Gold link on there. Gold link on there. You can see the dot there as well. Those are good. Got two new cam bolts on there. Those are torqued to, I don't remember what it was, but then it was an additional 90 degrees, which is easy to do on the motor. But on the workbench, I had to grab a C-clamp to hold the head. But these are all torqued. Tensioners back on there. Torqued these. Got everything surgically clean. And then slapped a brand new Felpro multi-layer steel head gasket on there. Got all 10 of my new Felpro head bolts on. Lubricated and went through the 6 torquing steps. I made my own little diagram here since this is for the driver's side. And got this thing completely torqued down to spec. Nice and tight. From there, I got the header back on. Got the starter back on. I didn't film that because everyone knows it's a pain in the butt. Refer to the previous video for that. Also got both brand new ball joints pressed in on both sides. Gave the A-arms and spindles and brake dust shields a fresh coat, flat black. Looking much nicer. But yeah, I got my new stainless hardware, studs and bolts, or studs and nuts on the header. And just for good measure, I used a little bit, just a skim coat of copper RTV, which should only be used on exhaust parts, just to help everything seal up. You know, sometimes that's a good idea on older headers that have a little bit of porosity, can help seal in any of those imperfections. Didn't have any leaks before, but I had an old tube of RTV that I wanted to use up, so we did that. So up next is timing. I haven't messed with the timing over here, but I need to get my dots lined back up. And then I should just need to throw on the other chain, get it lined up dot to dot on there. I'll use my custom or my special tool that lines everything up down here. And then we should be good to go. Then I can put the timing cover back on. I've already popped in a new timing or front cover seal there, crank seal. Head cooling mod is back in the head. And then I can get to work popping all 32 rockers or cam followers back on. Then some of the accessories, and then the supercharger. Yeah, so we got a plan, got a path forward, but there's still a lot of work to do before this thing is ready to go in. It's already kind of late, and I would love to get the motor in tonight, but let's keep pressing forward. This thing's got too many timing chains. 3 too many to be exact. It's making me miss the LS stuff over there. Dot to dot to dot to dot on the back one to dot. LS is you just do 1 dot to 1 dot and you're done. The heads are too wide, the displacement's not enough, there's too many timing chains, it needs a supercharger to make as much power as that thing with just, you know, bolt-ons. Just kidding. Love the Cobras. That's my little modular Ford rant. There's a lot going on here, but she's timed. Done. I can get the timing cover on. Finally got the correct balancer install tool that I should have bought years ago. If I can open it here. It's got the bearing and all the correct threads for not only this motor, but LS motors and who knows what else. So let's get these surfaces cleaned up, get some RTV in the corners and where it meets the heads here, get the timing cover back on and continue with assembly. almost made it. The parts pile has shrunk significantly, but there's still a decent amount on there. But the heads are on, the motor is timed, all 32 followers, cam followers are in, which really, you know, tries your patience a little bit. A, because there's 32 of them, and B, they're just, you know, kind of trying to get your fingers in there to get the follower in there and then support it while you kind of pry it up with a screwdriver. Wears on you a little bit. My goal tonight was to get this motor completely reassembled and at least bolted back in the car. Not all hooked up or anything, but back in the car. But I'm out of time, guys. It's very late right now. I have to be up in a few hours to go to the airport. Heading out of town for a little bit. So I'm already way past when I should be, you know, in bed, horizontal, catching some shut-eye. Looking at the inside of my eyelids for a little. I don't look at the inside of my eyelids enough, but anyways, guys, we got really close to this. In this video, we've replaced 32 valve seals, 1 valve guide, 1 valve, 1 cam, a bunch of different seals, 1 head gasket, 10 head bolts, 1 timing cover seal, exhaust, you know, stainless steel hardware, and God knows what else. Not a ton of cost involved, but the labor is just insane. But the light is at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully in the next video I can plop this blower on, finish up the accessories, get the valve covers on, and then basically this thing can slide back under the car can come down. That would be awesome. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Hopefully you're enjoying the ongoing montage that is the cheap 2003 Cobra. We ain't done yet, boys. We are not done yet. Kind of wish we were. That's going to do it for this video, guys. Hit the thumbs up if you like the video, and or if you like watching me suffer doing this stuff. Catch you in the next one. I need a beer.